My name is Stephanie Saylor, and this is a visual phasing workshop. Today we will be reviewing how to label recombination points on example C. In previous steps, we've already marked our recombination lines. Next, we find our points of change and which comparisons those changes happen in. On the first recombination line, on the very left-hand side, we see the bottom two comparisons had changes occur. From no match to half match, yellow over blue, and from half match, yellow over blue to no match, that gray bottom. Both of these two bottom comparisons compare one of the siblings with Kate. And so Kate is the one who had the change. And we can label that recombination line with a C for Kate and move on. The next recombination line has changes in the top two comparisons, moving from a yellow-blue half match to a no match, gray on the bottom, and from a half match, yellow on top, blue on bottom, to a full match, green on top, blue on bottom. Both these comparisons contain Willow. So Willow is compared with one sibling and Willow is compared with the other sibling. So Willow is involved in both these changes, and so she is the one who had recombination take place. She had the change, and so that change shows up when she is compared to either of her siblings. The next recombination line sees changes on the top two comparisons, moving from no match to a segment of half identical matching, and from a full match to a half match. Both of these comparisons contain Willow, and so Willow is the person who had that recombination. So we will see a change here when we map Willow's DNA. But for now, we're just going to put a W at the bottom of that line. The next recombination line, we see changes in the top and bottom comparison. The top comparison between Willow and Mabel goes from a half match to a no match, whereas the bottom comparison between Mabel and Kate moves from a no match to a segment of half match. Mabel is the common denominator. Mabel compared with Kate and Mabel compared with Willow. So Mabel is the one who had recombination take place. Her next recombination line is in the top two comparisons. The top moves from a no match to a half match, where DNA is shared on only one of the two chromosomes. And the middle comparison moves from a half match to a no match. Between those two comparisons, we see Willow is involved in both. Willow compared with Kate, as well as Willow compared with Mabel. So Willow is the person who had recombination occur, so we put a W at the bottom of that line for Willow. The next recombination line has changes in the bottom two comparisons, moving from a no match to a half match. And then the bottom comparison moves from a half match to a full match. Both these comparisons have Kate in common. The middle comparison is Willow versus Kate, and the bottom comparison is Mabel and Kate. Kate's involved in both of these changes, or is compared both times, and so Kate had the change, and it shows up when she is then compared with either of her siblings. So Kate is the one who had recombination take place. In the next recombination line, we see changes in the top and bottom comparisons. The top moves from a half identical segment to a fully identical segment and is between Willow and Mabel. And the bottom moves from a fully identical segment to a half identical segment and is between Mabel and Kate. Between these siblings, Mabel is the one compared in both of these comparisons. Mabel compared with Willow on the top, Mabel compared with Kate on the bottom. So Mabel is the one who had that recombination take place, and it shows up when she's compared to either of her siblings. The next recombination line shows us changes on the bottom two comparisons between Willow and Kate and Mabel and Kate, moving from a half-identical match to a full match, and from a half-identical match to a full match. Kate is involved in both these comparisons, and so Kate is the one who had recombination take place. The next recombination line shows changes in the comparisons between Willow and Kate and Mabel and Kate, as the Willow and Kate comparison moves from a full match to a half match, and Mabel and Kate comparison moves also from a full match to a half match. Kate's involved in both of these comparisons, and so we mark that recombination line for Kate, as she shows that change when she's compared with either of her sisters. The last recombination line shows changes in the top two comparisons, with a fully identical segment moving to a half-identical segment, and a half-identical segment moving to a fully identical segment in the middle. Both these comparisons involve Willow, and so Willow is the one who had the change occur. We have now marked all the recombination lines for who had recombination take place at that line. Go ahead and label the recombination lines in your visual phasing project.